Well, this will be an easy and quick moist meter. Dune Part 2. It's good. Really good. All of my minor complaints about Part 1 completely fixed in Part 2. I know a lot of people didn't like Part 1 for one simple fact: it was slow, and it felt like it was only ever building and never quite reaching what it was building to. And I get that. It kept serving you really tasty appetizers, but never giving you that main course because it's set up for further movies to explore that and conclude it. So I do get that that can be a little underwhelming, and I've never really minded a slow burn type story, so I was never put off by the pacing of the first one per se. But I do understand that some people kind of viewed it as a bit of a snooze fest. Like they sat there watching Dune, and it was like listen to Jigglypuff's song and they just fell asleep. Well, I don't think you'll be having that problem with the sequel here. You'll probably just be shoving that fucking popcorn in your face. You paid for the whole seat, but you only need the edge, because Part 2 has a lot going on all the time. I loved Part 1 for the narrative and its characters, and there were great fight scenes and some impressive visuals, of course, but what really sold me on Dune was the world and the way that it was crafting its story. It also helped that the characters were really well written, so I cared about them pretty quickly. And in Part 2, I care about them even more, and they're even more fleshed out, because obviously they have even more time with them, and the writing is still super tight. Part 2, though, blesses us with some incredible action sequences that are visually stunning and just some beautiful scenes. By far, my favorite sequence in this film is when we're getting to know the Harkonnens. There is, I'm trying to avoid spoilers, there is a new Harkonnen coming into his own here in a big way, taking on a large role in the story. And in order to really introduce him and hype him up to the entire universe, they have this gladiatorial show match where he just goes in there, takes a couple scalps, nuts to butts, cleaves some people to pieces, and everyone pumps their fists. Yeah, way to fucking murder him. Yeehaw, woohoo, that kind of stuff. It's rigged. So the combatants that he's fighting are supposed to be drugged so he can just easily dispatch them. Basically just farming low elo here. And what ends up happening is, well, one of the combatants, a familiar face, is not drugged, and it leads to a really interesting fight. But it's not even so much that, it's the way that this scene is portrayed. It's pretty much all black and white, and it looks so cool. Like, it looks amazing. So seeing a full fight go on in that style was really interesting. And I don't know why I feel like pointing this out, but for some reason I got very strong Final Fantasy X vibes, like with Blitzball, where like all these fireworks and shit are going off celebrating. But in Dune Part 2, those fireworks are, again, just black and white. So basically it's like giant fucking ink blotches just exploding in the sky. And they kind of linger there for a little bit, making like this pseudo Rorschach in the sky. It's just really a very, very creative style that I loved to watch. And there's quite a few scenes that have very interesting visuals to them. Obviously, you know it's going to be extremely impressive given the budget of the film and given how beautiful the first one was. But I was really blown away by the visuals in Part 2, even better somehow. And again, like I said, this one has a lot more action to it, so I don't think there's going to be a lot of people that are bored by it. Because like I said, I know a lot of people said they were bored with Part 1. I don't envision that being the case with this. I think it's exciting, the story is gripping, it's visually fucking astonishing. I just really think Dune Part 2 is the complete package. Oh, it also sounds great. The music in here slaps. Nothing but boner jams out the wazoo. The love story they tell isn't cringe or anything. It's handled really well. It's very interesting. The coming of age story of Paul Atreides, destined to be this extremely important leader that he needs to become, I think is done very well. Like, I just thought this movie fucking slapped. Now, I don't think it's perfect. I would like to talk about a couple complaints. A few of them that I have are spoiler territory, so I'm not going to get into spoilers, but one thing that I think this movie suffers from is just having so much that sometimes things get lost on screen. So, this isn't a spoiler. Paul Atreides, he gets a little bit of future sight. You know, this guy, he can see some shit before it happens. And since he can do that, it leads to a lot of his decision making being a question mark to the viewer sometimes, and you just have to accept that he's doing this because he can see the future, so this must be the only way. But that's a little jarring because some of the decisions that get made are like, it seems kind of out of character a little bit. Like, that's quite a contrast to the scene we just saw you in before. Like, sometimes it feels like things come out of nowhere. Occasionally, shit just happens, and there's no full-blown explanation for why some things happen. Now, maybe part 3 dives into them a bit deeper to explain a couple of the things I'm talking about, but for now, you just have to accept, shit happens. And that brings me to another one of my complaints, where some very important character deaths I feel were kind of underwhelming. I don't think they were handled as well as I think they should have been. I'm talking very important characters getting killed, and it's just kind of like this afterthought. It's like they get killed by a single move, and they barely fight back at all, really. Like they were just waiting to die and didn't really care, just like, I'm just gonna AFK real quick and let you just fucking annihilate me. It's like, kind of sucks, because this is a character that's kind of a big character, I would think, and that's how they're gonna be sent off. That just felt a little unfortunate, because I thought there could have been more to do there. Now, keep in mind, I haven't read the books. And as I understand it, the movies don't adapt everything one-to-one, but they do a really good job of it in most people's perspectives. But if I had to guess, I imagine the characters that perish in this movie don't die the same way in the book. Basically like, hey, I'm out. You ready to kill me? Alright, cool. Can you do it quickly? Alright, cool. Bang. I'm out, ski. It just feels underwhelming with a couple of those moments. But it's not enough to actually be a detriment to the film overall. It's so good. I really, really enjoyed Dune Part 2. I think it's extraordinary. So, plugging Dune Part 2 into the moist meter, I'm just going to give it a comfortable 95%. I am super invested in the conclusion to the story. There is a Part 3 coming. It doesn't wrap up in this one, so I'm once again just biting my fucking nails waiting to see how this story wraps itself up. So, I can't wait for Part 3, and I think they crushed it with this film. That's about it. So, yeah. Just kidding, asshole. You got pranked. Classic. I can't believe you fell for it, you fool. There is one more thing I wanted to mention before closing it out. I really think every single actor in here is putting on their A game. They brought the special sauce here, because everyone does a great job, and you can really feel like they wanted this to be special. So, what I mean by that is, every character feels real, and that helps sell you on the scale of the conflict, as well as just the importance of every single thing that happens and the character relationships being meaningful. So Timothy and Zendaya, they really do have great chemistry on screen, so it doesn't feel like it's anything forced or anything. The love story hits. It feels good to watch that blossom, and it goes in very interesting directions. And the new big bad guy that has a very nefarious and evil aura about him is super over-the-top evil, but not to the point where it becomes cartoonish. He's played by Austin Butler, and he'll just murder people for fun. If he just gets a weird look from someone, it's fucking slitting their throat just because of it, or peeling their scalp off, because why not? And sometimes that just gets comical because of how over the top it is, but not here. It feels menacing because Austin Butler goes hog wild with it and really commits to it and makes it menacing. And that's true for every character that gets introduced here, and every character in the world. It just really seems so real because of how much effort they put into their performances, and I just had to point that out. I just had to mention that. So yeah, now that's about it. See ya.